Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira,
pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
Contained herein are the heresies of Radolf Buntwine, erstwhile monk turned traveling medical investigator. Join me as I study the secrets of the divine plagues and uncover the blasphemous truth that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The heresies of Radolf Buntwine, wherever podcasts are available.
Hey, everybody. Hello. We are about to talk about Aubrey, which is a town, not a person, so don't get too excited. But before we do, first and
you
foremost...
know how people are always getting excited when they think Aubrey's a person.
I would personally like to meet a person named Aubrey more than I would like to go to a place named Aubrey. That's just my personal take, Jenny, and I get to keep it.
You got to be you.
Before we do or say anything else, happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
To all of you. I want to shout out an event that I think is pretty cool. Juneteenth 2024 International Art Exhibition Gallery Talk. This is a collaboration. Artists from around the world are joining in celebrating the enduring spirit, I'm reading from the event page now, of Juneteenth through their powerful artistic expressions. 27 artists are going to be presenting at this. It's virtual, which means no matter where you are, you can attend this event. They're going to be speaking about their work and answering questions from anyone who's in attendance. It's also the first of 4 of these gallery talks. A link to this event, if you would like to attend it, is going to be in today's show notes.
Also, has there ever been a better day in 2024 to remind our beautiful listeners that all of our extra Patreon content, including live watches, ad-free episodes, book clubs, and more, are available to our Black and Indigenous listeners for free. Just go to bufferingcast.com/justkeepfighting to learn more.
Yes, and that event that I mentioned just a few moments ago, you can find that information on the calendar, which is on that Just Keep Fighting page, because we have an ongoing calendar of events that are tied into Black community, tied into Indigenous communities, tied into disability, tied into many, many, many different things over there. So head on over to bufferingcast.com/justkeepfighting if you wanted to learn more or find more about that event, and those links are in the show notes. And also, before we go into today's episode, we wanted to take a second to read a listener email that came in about our conversation around Excelsis Day.
God
damn it. But 50% of the intro is just Jenny and I talking about the titles of various X-Files episodes. This email came in from our listener Anandi, who wrote in, and I quote, "Your discussion of assisted living facilities," for those of you who don't remember, Excelsis Day or Day was an assisted living facility for folks with dementia and Parkinson's and things like that. Your discussion of assisted living facilities and their possible relevance to your presumed to be young and able-bodied listenership had a pretty major gap that I felt I needed to speak up about. People's parents are not the only context a younger person might have for these facilities and the specter of abuse within them. For disabled and chronically ill people, care facilities and the abuse that is endemic within them represents either a day-to-day reality or a very real possibility and looming threat at all times. Additionally, while I'm sure you're correct, there are many places that treat people well, whether someone or their parents has access to that is entirely determined by their economic status. However well-intentioned the workers might be at the facilities available to the poor, i.e. most people who are unable to work in this country, so most disabled people, the staffing and support deficits mean that conditions are probably closer to what is depicted here, in some ways, LOL, than not even in the cases where the staff do care. But also, what improvements and changes to the way these places are regarded do exist, including the language, such as the shifts you notice between this episode and your own experiences, community care programs, are entirely down to the tireless and historic and hugely important activism of the disabled community who fought bitterly for the ADA and for the elderly and disabled to have access to basic human rights. Your experience with your father's care and the fact that it was not like what is shown here was shaped in every part by the work of the disability justice movement, which in the 4th year and counting of a global mass disabling event is more active and relevant than ever. This is an incredible message. Thank you, Anandi, for sharing it. I did focus a lot on my personal experience, which was with my father, and definitely should have highlighted much past that. So I really appreciate this email. And, you know, we always encourage folks to write in emails just like this one, because if we do miss something, we always have the opportunity to talk about it more in a future episode. So thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anandi.
Okay, so now we are off to the town of Aubrey, featuring absolutely no one named Aubrey.
His bones are in good condition, but I think the field may have been tilled shortly after Chaney was buried. There are small cuts on the top 3 ribs. I don't think they were made by an animal.
Listen to this, Scully. One must wonder how these monsters are created. Chaney wrote this. Did their home life mold them into creatures that must maim and kill? Or are they demons from birth?
Well, that's poetic, but it doesn't help us much.
Welcome to the eX-Files. That's the eX-Files, buddy. A buffering rewatch adventure where we are watching and discussing every episode of the X-Files, one by one, spoiler free. I've always been intrigued by women named BJ. I'm Jenny Owen Youngs, ex-wife of Kristin Russo, and I grew up watching the X-Files.
And I'm a demon from birth, Kristin Russo, who's also the ex-wife of Jenny Owen Youngs. I've only ever seen 36 episodes of The X-Files, and today we are talking about that 36th episode, Season 2, Episode 12, Aubrey.
Aubrey was written by Sarah B. Charno, now Sarah Cooper, directed by Rob Bowman, and originally aired on January 6th, 1995.
Let's go, 1995! About to bust on through my sophomore year of high school. Turned 15 at the end of the year. Let's go. Probably getting really into 16 Stone by Bush. Maybe that was, that was now. That was probably about now. Anyway, this is not about me in 1995. This is about a pregnant policewoman who experiences visions that lead her to the remains of 2 FBI agents who went missing in the 1940s, while on the trail of a serial killer that later got caught. The killings begin again, but the only suspect is now 77. Bum, bum, bum.
Not 77.
Also, the serial killer did not later get caught. I mean, he got caught. You know what? Well, I'll wait till we get into the episode.
Okay. So in our last taping, Kristin, you declared that this episode was refreshingly linear and made lots of sense.
I did not. That is a misquote. I definitely said it made more sense, which I think I'm correct. And
you said this is the best episode of the X-Files, the greatest episode of television I've ever actually seen. These are direct quotes from the last episode.
You wrote them down? What are you, my stenographer?
Yeah.
Are you going to do LaToya's scary ranking, or do you want me just to dig right into all my feelings?
No. Sorry. Producer LaToya Ferguson's scary rating for this episode is 2.375 out of 5 mutator genes that have activated previously dormant genes. LaToya writes, I struggled with this ranking because I wasn't necessarily scared. Felt some elevated tension at times, but still, the theme was the biggest stressor for me. But I could see where the attempts for scares were coming from, and I could see how they were technically executed well, as well as how others could be scared by this episode, both now and back in 95. This ultimately all boils down to my big note about this episode, which is that it could have been more successful in bringing the scares and telling the story, in general, in feature film version, as opposed to a 40-plus minute network TV episode.
I'm
Very
sorry.
fair.
I'm sorry. We're gonna let a woman write a feature film now, LaToya? That seems.
Let's not get carried away.
Let's take a deep breath, okay?
When will she have time to make the coffee and feed the baby?
I also love that it used to be that when we got these fractions from LaToya, there was a breakdown, and I like it this way where there's absolutely we just have to figure it out for
It's
ourselves.
none of our business.
Yeah, where that extra 1.375 came from. I will say that my scaredy cat wife Avanti did scream out loud when we see young Coakley in the mirror in that incredible scene, I think, with BJ. So if you're going by Avanti meter, we did get one out loud scream.
Okay.
Okay, so linear plot, schminier plot. You know what I mean? This one just had more of a linear plot. The only place that I am left a bit confused is this genetic conversation, which seems completely disproven by like 87 beats in the episode. Like, you know, we have BJ. For those of you who haven't rewatched the episode, in case IMDb didn't give you enough of a vision, BJ gets pregnant by John Locke, but John Locke has a wife. His name is Brian
Tillman.
His name is Brian, but he's John Locke, and I'm so excited that he's here. So she's pregnant. They've been having an affair. He's married. They're going to meet up at a hotel, oh my God, to discuss this baby. But instead, she starts having visions. Ever heard of Cordelia Chase? Very Cordelia Chase visions. They lead her to uncover the dead bodies of folks who were killed by a serial killer in the 40s. And we find out that she's the granddaughter of the killer. Also very like Scream-esque, you know, spoilers for Scream. But anyway, I followed all of that and I liked a lot of it. And and we'll discuss like the directing and, you know, all of this stuff. But I thought that this was a really like well shot episode. And I love horror films, and this is very like leaning into the horror-esque of it all, which I loved. But I just felt like BJ for the most part is showing us every sign that she's like possessed with the spirit of former Coakley rather than the genetic thing that's talked about a lot, that we'll talk about a lot. But if you take that out, then I know he's not dead. I know Coakley is alive. But like, it just seems more that she's being driven by some kind of entity, spirit, energy of young Coakley than a genetic mutation, especially because like her voice is super low when she
develops the same rash on her face.
Yeah.
She puts some kind of product in her hair that a man in the 40s would, and has like a hard part all of a sudden.
You know what I thought would have been so cool is skipping forward, Thibodeau as the only living, as the final. I mean, Thibodeau, shout out to our final girl, Mrs. Thibodeau, who survives not one.
Old Tibbs.
Yeah, good job, Tibbs. I thought it would have been so cool if the reason that Coakley had those markings on his face is because when she was being attacked, Thibodeau threw ammonia on him. And then she's cleaning again, and BJ comes in and she throws the ammonia on her, and then she has the same rash. I thought that they were going to do that, and they didn't. And I don't understand why, and I'm disappointed. But all that to say, I enjoyed this episode, and mostly I think I enjoyed it because it was so much better than the last few episodes that we've watched, which is not saying a ton, okay?
Okay, Kristin, a quick note before we jump in. Mulder's hair is still looking like shit.
This man.
Why are they doing this to this man? This poor, handsome man.
You know,
with beautiful, glossy locks.
Some of you have written in to ask me to ask my crystal ball when this man's hair will figure itself out. And I don't even have the heart to ask the crystal ball that question. You know what I mean?
You might not want to know the answer.
No, I'm disappointed. It's been too long. We're all ready for a grown-up duck and not the duckling that we have.
Diving in.
Before we dive in, I actually, because we made a joke about Sarah Charno as of the writing of this episode, a woman wrote this episode, which is pretty exciting. And I just, if I may, want to read some of LaToya's notes on this.
Mm-hmm.
It begins with a recollection from Chris Carter, but not as bad as some of the other ones have been. This was Sarah Charno's first effort, something that she had been working on for several months, Chris Carter recalls. By the time we got to produce it, it was a finely honed script. Can you believe it? He then goes on to say, there was a lot of help given to Sarah by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, who helped shepherd the script along. But this is by far the most glowing review we've gotten from Chris Carter. But LaToya goes on to say, of course, this is one of the few X-Files scripts written by a woman. This is now LaToya speaking. From what I can see, there's always one per season, unless it's a team of women, but I also count that team as one. And it's always a different woman each season until season 6, which has no woman writer. Season 7, Jillian is the, quote, one woman, and she also was the, quote, one woman director of the same episode. So far, it's been Charno and Marilyn Osborne who wrote season 1's Shapes. And LaToya notes, you may remember that Carter essentially threw Marilyn Osborne under the bus, instead only praising Morgan and Wong's rewrites of her script. Charno at least gets slightly more credit from Carter here.
Indeed.
This is why I'm saying we can't let a woman write a feature film. She can barely write 40 minutes. You know what? Hit the patriarchy jingle. Nice up top. A nice, fresh up top patriarchy jingle. The patriarchy!
Okay. Kristin.
Jennifer.
Let's begin with, I think, something that's like pretty relatable, fairly universal. Correct me if I'm wrong. Women are just simply always like, there's a filling on the occlusal surface of the upper left bicuspid. Oh, he's congenitally missing a lower left bicuspid here and here. Give it a rest, ladies.
Yeah, stop talking about teeth, ladies. This is so close to a slideshow. You know what I mean? It's like an X-ray slide.
There's no slideshow, but right, we've got the X-rays up on the light box, and then immediately, thwap. Ever heard of Sam Chaney Scully? Where just Mulder's busting out all the hits. Do we really believe that Mulder brushes his teeth after every meal?
Jenny, you know what? Podcaster brains who podcast together talk about brushing teeth together. No, I just was trying to say that I have the same question written in my notes. Do we really think Mulder brushes after every meal? And I went on to ask, what about after he eats sunflower seeds? Because I would be concerned for his enamel if he brushes that much.
Based on what we've seen, I think he consumes enough sunflower seeds for his sunflower seed consumption to account for at least one meal's worth of food intake a day.
Breakfast, some like cereal, some cinnamon toast crunch. You think is Mulder's cereal pick?
Sure.
And then lunch would be just sunflower one pile sunflower seeds, and then dinner, whatever Scully's having.
The sauce he wipes off of Scully's face while she's eating ribs. I actually think Mulder eats Wheaties because there's like usually a basketball player on the box, and I feel like he would be really drawn to that.
Yeah, that's true. But but like serious question, do we really think, I do not think that Mulder brushes his teeth after every meal. I think he's full of shit. I think I think we get breakfast, we get before breakfast, and I think we are lucky if we get an after dinner from this man who falls asleep on his fucking couch every night.
Yeah, often watching porn. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Nice.
I don't think so. Although I think if Mulder were this age in 2024, I think he'd be the kind of guy who has like a huge bulk bag of the like little plastic flossets.
Yep.
He'd just be doing that all the time.
Yeah. It would be his like remedy for like his like cure for his addiction to sunflower seeds. He'd just move over to little floss sticks.
Exactly.
Okay, wait. You skipped something a couple of things. You skipped the green mug. And I know we don't have to go chronologically, but it's just really important to me. If you're not a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, how did you even get here? But welcome. But we talked so much about Giles and Giles's jadeite green mug. And Brian, a.k.a. John Locke, a.k.a. Terry O'Quinn, has a green mug, and we have a jingle for a green mug because we've been podcasting for long enough to have a jingle about a green mug. Hit it, bitch.
Don't mind if I do.
Well, it's a green mug song from the bottom of our hearts. This very handsome glassware will answer every mug prayer, and Giles can drink in style. And Giles can drink in style.
I do think that it should be noted that Giles uses the C handle on his green mug, and Terry O'Quinn / Brian / John Locke uses the D handle. Much, much better to break a D handle than a C handle. You do not want to break a C handle jadeite mug. We've learned they're very expensive.
Harder to come by. Okay. Can I give you the rundown that Mulder gives to Scully about Sam Chaney?
I would love it.
He's a legend. 40 years before the Bureau started profiling violent criminals, Chaney and his partner Tim Ledbetter would work on their own time investigating what they then called stranger killings, what are now called serial murders. Ooh, stranger killings. They disappeared while investigating 3 murders in Aubrey, Missouri in 1942. Chaney's body wasn't found until 2 days ago by local detective B.J. Morrow. ... A woman! You're telling me not only can women write an episode of television, but also they could be a detective?
And this is
and
wild.
Find a body?
They can be, according to this episode, they can write an episode of television. They can be a cop. They can be a detective. They can be a serial killer, and they can be a fucking scientist. So
modern women can have it all.
They can fucking have it all, Jenny. Ledbetter just begs, like I say it and I want to continue with some kind of tongue twister. You know what I mean? Red better, yellow better. Yeah. Which actually made me, when I was just Googling it, made me find that Pearl Jam has a song called A Yellow Ledbetter.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, thank you for telling me the information that Mulder relayed to Scully. There's a moment in the episode, I don't even remember. I won't remember till we get there, where I was like, wow, you really are the Mulder to my Scully. In this episode, you claim that title.
What did I do?
So, well, I don't know.
It sounded derogatory, Kristin.
I'll tell you when we get there, Jenny. So off to Aubrey, we should say. Off to Aubrey we go. The amount of wondering I did about who Aubrey was going to be. Then I saw the thumbnail for this episode, and I was like, well, clearly there she is.
Ooh, she's a detective.
The detective, look, the way her face is in the thumbnail on Hulu and probably elsewhere, just that's an Aubrey. But no, it's the town in Missouri where we're going.
Missouri.
Okay, can we talk about BJ for a second? Not Mulder's opinions on a girl named BJ, but rather the character.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I would like to say that in high school, I had a really good friend named BJ, and it never occurred to me that was a funny joke. So I don't know if I was living under a rock or what it was, but I was completely fine with that name. That man no longer goes by BJ; he goes by Brandon, because I think eventually he figured out that he did not want to be associated. No offense to our listeners named BJ, I support you. No matter your gender, this is Pride Month after all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so. LaToya says in her notes, throughout most of the episode, I refer to BJ as Lady Cop because her being a cop actually doesn't matter to this episode at all, and it's kind of insulting. Yes, Jenny?
Yeah, she's just a lady. The only place where it comes into play is that she has access to the room where Mulder and Scully are looking at the rib cuts, and that she has access to the freshman lookbook of mugshots that she uses to identify Coakley from her dream.
Do you think they have superlatives in that thing?
Most likely to murder. It's all of them.
All of them, yeah. Also, I had this note in my mind from LaToya when I was rewatching, and so I thought, well, this was an easy way to get her access to everything you said. Plus, we have this reveal. She's having all these dreams, and we get this reveal that the woman murdered in this empty pool, which... You want me to like a scene? Put it in an empty pool. I will always fall.
Yeah, that's right up your alley.
Yeah, I will always
You're like,
fall.
what are you waiting for? I know that scene doesn't happen in a pool, but it very easily could have.
Easily could have. And the echo that we would have gotten from that scream, that Jennifer Love Hewitt scream. Oh my God, I'm watching 911 right now, and Jennifer Love Hewitt is in it, and I've like fallen in love with her all over again. Like adult me has fallen in love with Jennifer Love Hewitt, you know, because I wasn't a fan of Jennifer Love Hewitt in the 90s. Probably because of internalized misogyny. I don't know. Anyway, my point being that BJ would have never been able to get in this pool to see the victim at the scene and have this reveal. So I think it was just an easier way for the writers to get, you know, the plot moved along without having to like get this woman in various places.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing with BJ, like her entire thing is that she's having an affair with Tillman and she's pregnant. And Tillman, I would like to start off by saying, is a fucking asshole. You hate to see it, but John Locke, no good. No bueno.
It's not a great vibe that he's giving off. If you are going to have an affair with your coworker, cheat on your wife, and get her pregnant, the least you could do is not be a bag of shit about it.
He's like, when she comes in to tell him, he's like such a shitbag, even like before he knows that she's pregnant. And you think maybe her saying she's pregnant will like make him a little less of a shitbag. But he's just such a dick all the way down. He's a dick when she comes in like, oh, you're upset that I didn't show up and you made dinner. Wah, wah. And then he later is like a real shitbag when he tells her that it's actually their decision whether or not she keeps the baby and that she can't change her mind and keep the baby, which really flies in the face, Jenny, of the end of the episode where then suddenly, this is what I'd like to believe. I'd like to believe that our woman writer wrote this script and then the edits made to the script later were like, so Tillman decides that he will adopt this baby from BJ after. I'm like, how did this man who like wouldn't even meet her unless it was at a motel and was such a jackass now want to adopt this child? Did he tell his wife? I mean, he must have told his wife then. Or what's the plan here?
Maybe he's just like, oh, I was so close with my coworker and now she's
committed to an asylum. So let us take care of her child. Yeah, you know what? Actually, that would be the fucking move that Tillman would make.
The biggest, I'm so sorry. Listen, there's a small cluster of bumps that I have a hard time riding over with this episode, which is, okay, so BJ Morrow is pregnant. Deborah Strang, who's playing BJ Morrow, is 45 when this is shot. And she, you know, she looks like a 1995 45. So, like, sure, you can totally get pregnant when you're 45. But it does kind of like, I definitely was like clocking like, oh, okay. Then when we get to like the Thibodeau gave her baby up for adoption, I'm like, it's got to be BJ, right? Because that baby would be almost 50.
Oh yeah.
But for Morrow to be the daughter of a 50-year-old, of a nearly 50-year-old, is like a little bit of a bump. Now, maybe it was less of a bump in the 90s because I feel like we were used to seeing
Luke Perry play a teenager.
No, I was going to say we were used to just seeing a lot less like Botox and stuff.
I see what you're saying.
A lot less like preventative and injective. I don't know what the right adjective is. But like I've been, for reasons I cannot explain, I've been watching the first few seasons of Survivor. And every time somebody comes on the screen and they're like, it's like, this guy, 40, I'm like, holy shit.
40-year-olds on television simply don't look like that anymore, eh?
I'm the same age as obviously I'm of course 42, as we all know, but it's like, it's wild to just sort of like see how much the, I don't know, anti-aging industry has, and you know, sort of like adjacent industries have changed the way we look. But also people are probably smoking less cigarettes and stuff, and maybe drinking
I would
less.
say too that I wonder because in a lot of ways you would think that the typical way to write this script would be that he's having an affair with a younger woman who he works. I mean, like that's just like the run of the mill, what have you. So I wonder if this is either like a writing choice of like upending some of that, or if they did a casting call and Deborah Strang was just so good. I mean, they submitted her for an Emmy for this. She is
she's crushing. She's so awesome.
But they should have just written it up then. They should have just had Tillman have a son who was 60 instead of 50. You know what I mean? They should have just given a little bit more room for the math, and then it would all work out. But massive shout out to Deborah Strang in this because she's incredible, and as is the direction. But I we don't have to talk about all of that right up at the top.
What BJ Morrow is in no way prepared for is when Mulder's asking her a variety of questions, Tillman's kind of like getting in the middle of it and like trying to answer for her and like get Mulder to fuck off. And then Mulder's like, I just want to ask like a few more questions. BJ's like, cool. What can I tell you? Mulder's like, ever had any clairvoyant experiences, premonitions, visions, precognitive dreams, anything like that?
This made me so desperately wish to have even more time so that I could just make a compilation of every time Mulder like is just casually asks a question like this.
Yeah. Like right out of the fucking gate too.
Yeah. But this really makes BJ like immediately pause, and she's like, dreams? Because she's been having these dreams. And as this debate is going on where, Brian is getting involved, like leave her alone. What is she, a suspect? Blah, blah, blah. Scully is busy doing her own detective work, and only the detective work a woman can do.
Yeah. Scully is math lady memeing so hard. She's got the ball of yarn. She's got the thumbtacks. She's ready to go to work on that corkboard.
And she realizes instantly that these two are sleeping together.
A woman senses these things, she tells Mulder. Mulder's like, I've never sensed a thing in my life unless it was like paranormal. I've certainly never sensed anything having to do with interpersonal relationship nuance.
Clearly not.
Okay, while Scully is examining these bones and checking out the small cuts in the top 3 ribs, do you think she's getting hungry?
Oh, wow.
Do you think they're calling to mind any other ribs she may have recently
No, this is not
come into
the show.
contact with?
This title of the show is not Hannibal, Jenny. Take it back.
I mean, ribs are ribs. See Yellow Jackets.
Oh, so that's the body part you'd eat first? The human rib? Barbecue human rib?
Before I give an answer, I'd like the opportunity to just do a little research because I feel like there's probably a best practice sort of top to bottom of human body parts.
Are you
best
telling me that in the year 2024, you, Jennifer Owen Youngs, have not done research on what part of the human body you would eat first after watching 2 full seasons of Yellow Jackets multiple times?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
Man, not the woman I knew.
I'm just hoping for the best, Kristin. I'm hoping it never comes up. That's what I'm banking on. I'm sure this won't put me on any government lists or anything. Best part of human body to eat. According to Yale certified nutritionist, the brain and muscles are probably your best bet.
No.
What part of the body is most delicious? Oh, the ribeye. Where do you think the ribeye is in a person?
I don't even know where the ribeye is on a cow.
Same.
I don't think it has anything to do with an eye. I'll tell you that. Our meat doctor, because I don't know if you remember from last episode, but we have at least one meat doctor that listens, and we have made them so upset at this point.
Wow, I just found a quote from a cannibal. Seems like they'd have the best info, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to X out this tab and hope that the powers that be who are monitoring my computer just assume it was a mistake or for an eX-Files podcast.
I just found a quote from a pause. Cannibal is maybe one of my favorite moments of the podcast in total. Oh my God. Okay, so let's take a minute here. We have Mulder reading poetry. This reminds me of like the volcanologist of it all, you know? He's like reading Cheney, the former FBI agent who was totally pushed out. Nobody could deal with him because he talked about crazy psychology. And Mulder's like, you know what? That's like paranormal. Like he's just like really feeling himself as like current day Chaney. And meanwhile, as he's reading how these murders happen, he's like, blow to the head. And Scully picks up the skull and there's a hole in it. And then he's like, carved into chest. And she's like, that's what the cuts are. And you know what they need, Jenny? They need to find a fucking scanner for this shit. That's what they need to do. Hit that jingle. Let's enhance this fucking rib cage.
Holy hocus pocus, get it into focus. Enhance, enhance, enhance. A simple incantation to bring illumination. Enhance, 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 enhance.
Kristin, for Christmas this year, would you get me the computer program where there's a little skeleton and you can see, you know, what words might be carved into the flesh above those bones before the person died?
Is
and their
that not
flesh
just
decayed?
PlayStation and Skyrim? That feels
Yeah, no, I forgot PlayStation 5 can totally do that. Never mind.
Okay, great. Also, you made a joke about, do you think that Scully got hungry while touching these ribs? Was that joke directly hinged on the fact that the next scene she is chowing down with Mulder? Because she is.
I was just thinking of ribs.
Okay,
and
well, she is eating
her
something in this
canonical
scene
desire for them. What is she eating? Could you tell?
I couldn't, and I like really went back a few times. And like at first I was like, oh, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but then like Mulder picks something up that looks like it's coming out of like a Chinese food container. So, okay, so blah blah blah. BJ comes in, touches she wiggles her fingers over the bones in a way that I found almost as funny as when Mulder like fingered the picture of the tiny girl in that house, you know, like just.
Oh, no.
It's just like because I would like to say again, like I really do think that a lot of the choices made in this episode were pretty fucking cool. I did not understand this little like woo of her fingies over the rib, and she's like, it says brother. Another point in the it's not genetics bin. How would genetics make her know? Like that's her ancestral memory.
Yeah.
Stop asking. Can you make me the fucking jingle? If you make me the jingle, I'll stop asking questions.
Oh, good to know.
Anyway. Not only does she have a vision that this rib cage had brother carved into it, but she feels very nauseous because if you don't remember, she's pregnant. She goes to the bathroom. Now, last episode, Jenny, I talked about how I had seen this episode already, and I started to draw some little lines of like, okay, so here we have Scully in the bathroom with BJ, and she's sort of like, are you pregnant? Or you're pregnant, aren't you? And
she's like, interoffice relationships. Am I right?
Yeah. She also has like
heat between you and your coworker. Am I right?
I thought, wow, look at this. Does this pass the Bechdel test? This is written by a woman. You have Scully and BJ in the bathroom talking about murder.
Oops.
Yeah, it doesn't quite. But my actual point is just that like the way that Scully asks BJ questions, simply I think based on the fact whether or not I think this was written by a woman, simply based on the fact that like Gillian Anderson is a woman, as is the actress playing BJ. There's like an inherent understanding. There is a lack of dialogue even needed between them when she says like, what are you gonna do, you know? And Scully just leaves, and I love moments like this, especially from 1995, because you didn't see, I don't think, a lot of this, and because in the episode prior we had Scully believing a rape victim, and then that made me think about Back to the Volcano when we had Scully sitting down with, I'm sorry, but I called her Volcano Jane because I could not remember her name.
Okay.
But like
Jesse?
The bonding even not bonding, but like the conversations they had, like that girl at the volcano had come down to the volcano because she was sleeping with the guy in charge of science or whatever. And like
the guy in charge of science.
That's right. And so I like this. This is something I like on a macro level. And I just, that's all. Just draw my little lines. That's all.
Nice lines.
Thank you. Can we hear Deborah Strang's delivery to Scully in the bathroom about what her dreams have been like? She tells Scully, and I think Deborah Strang really nails the horror in so many moments, and this is one of them.
I'm in a house. Feels familiar. There's a woman that's been hurt. There's a mirror. I see a man's reflection. I recognize his face, but I don't know him. What I remember most is the blood. There's a lot of blood.
Chilling.
Do you think this whole time Scully's like, oh, I can't believe somebody's telling me about their dream right now. I'm so bored.
No, I think Scully is starting to believe. She's like, wait, by believe you meant I could also believe women? Interesting. Go on.
Mulder's like, no, I never said.
This is like such a tiny little note, but it really gave me a good laugh, Jenny. In this like coroner's room, which is where the bones are and all of this stuff, you know how the X-Files loves to give us locations. They really let me know where I am all the time. The location for this room was coroner's room, office C. And I was like, what? Room C. I was like, why do I need to know that it's room C, X-Files? But thank you for the specificity.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have more info than I need than less info than I need, I guess.
Okay, so John Locke is so mad. I do start calling him Brian in my notes at some point, a testament to Terry O'Quinn's acting that I actually moved away from John Locke. But he sees these photos, these crime scene photos that Mulder and Scully have. They're looking through with BJ, and they, of course, look exactly like the photos taken at this recent crime scene because sister is carved across the chest of the victims. And he's so pissed because he's like, this was a sealed crime investigation. How the fuck did you get these photos? And Mulder and Scully are like, these are from 1942, sir. And then it's like, bum, bum, bum.
Zoom in, Dolly out.
Did you say Dolly out or Scully out?
Zoom in, Scully out.
Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, my name is Alison Larkin, and I'm a writer, comedian, and narrator and host of the Jane Austen podcast. This podcast brings Jane Austen's stories to the 21st century, along with commentary from me and conversations with fascinating people who all share a love of Jane Austen. And of course, we had to start with none other than Pride and Prejudice. So join me as we embark on a journey through some of the most wonderful stories I know. The Jane Austen podcast with Alison Larkin is available wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's pretty clear to everyone by now that social media has changed everything from the way we live to how we discuss politics and what we think we know about the world around us. Which begs the question, who's in charge here? Hi, I'm Jon Favreau, former Obama speechwriter turned chronically online host of Offline with Jon Favreau. Join me every week just outside your social media-fueled echo chamber for a smarter, lighter conversation about the real-time changes and real-world effects of social media and the internet on all of our lives. Check out Offline with Jon Favreau every Sunday wherever you get your podcasts.
I'd like to put another pin in Mulder loves poetry because
yes.
Now that we all know that, and by we all I mean Mulder and Scully. Now that we know that BJ is pregnant, we're sitting at Lincoln Park, and we get a little nod to BJ's mothering instinct kicking in because she's pregnant, and we learn her dad was a cop. He would never say you could solve a crime from a dream. Mulder, pause, beat. I've often felt that dreams are answers to questions we haven't yet figured out how to ask. Whoa, buddy.
Mulder's like, I've been working on a song.
Seriously, he pulls his guitar out from underneath the picnic table.
I've often felt that dreams are answers to questions we haven't yet figured out how to ask.
Beautiful, Jenny. You should be a songwriter.
No, that was very bad and sloppy, and I'm sorry, but I just don't think that Mulder has honed his melodic skills yet. So I would argue that even though it was bad, it was true to the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Hard cut to Mulder at the espresso pump singing Behind Blue Eyes. So listen, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to report that there is yet another doodle appearing on the X-Files.
God, we really should. I again, can we just duplicate ourselves so that someone can keep track of the doodles as well? Because they're really collecting.
I know. What is so special about this one, Kristin, is that, okay, so BJ's describing her dream again. She sees the man in the mirror with the rash on his face. There's a picture behind him on the wall with a building that looks kind of like the Washington Monument and then like another thing next to it. And Mulder's like, can you draw it? And she's like, sure. And she draws a triangle and a
It's a triangle and a circle. It is one triangle and one circle. That is what it is. It is one. It is two shapes.
And Mulder's like, these look like the symbols of the 1939 World's Fair in New York.
Oh, God. Really good. Really good.
He's like, let me just fold that up and put it in my suit jacket pocket along the drawing of the Jersey Devil that I'm still carrying to this day.
It did take me on a little roundabout to look up the Trylon and the Perisphere because this is New York City World Fair. And I don't know how many times the World Fair was in New York City, but I learned at least twice. But this is 1939, and it's pretty fucking cool. Like, if you've never seen the actual photos, they were designed for the World Fair in 39, and you could go inside the Perisphere, and there was like a diorama of like a future city, and you could kind of stand around it and look at this thing. It really looks very, very cool. And it was built as a temporary structure, which is why it's not there anymore. And then when the buildings were closed and the Perisphere and the Trylon were razed, the materials were scrapped for World War II armaments. So they did recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle, kids.
Yeah. The World's Fair was in New York just those two times, 1939 and 1964.
Oh, you should take a second and Google Trylon and Perisphere U.S. stamp from 1939 because this is some hot ass design right here. I would love it. Any stamp collectors out there, if you have one of these, it's probably worth $8 million. But I don't. Can you just photocopy it for me? I'll just take the copy. Color photocopy, please.
Okay, that is the hottest stamp featuring a drawing of a triangle and a circle that I've ever seen.
Her triangle is not even proportionate. Her triangle is like way less isosceles than it needs to be. Do you know what I'm saying?
Kristin, did you know that there are Dungeons and Dragons stamps coming out this year for the 50th anniversary?
Are you going to tell me that they're cooler than this Trylon and Perisphere stamp?
Yeah.
No, I don't
that's
believe
exactly what I'm going to tell you.
I don't believe you. All right. So we talked about her going through her little lookbook, her freshman lookbook of murderers. I love that fucking Brian sits down. He's like, oh, you're here late. What are you looking through this book for? I don't get it, he says. That book is from the 1940s. I'm like, sir, you just were in the room where you thought that the crime scene photos were current and learned that they were from the 1940s. How are you not?
He's a detective, I'm just going to remind everyone.
They really drag detectives in this episode, Jenny, because later in the episode, they're like, yeah, so Coakley got caught. Like, he got caught. He tried to kill Thibodeau. He carved Sister into her chest and was put away for that murder. And Scully says to Mulder, so did they just not put it together with all the other murders where Sister was carved into the chest? And Mulder's like, yeah, I guess not.
Could have just been a different sister that knife was thinking of.
So BJ sees in this book, after we go through this conversation we already touched on where Brian wants her to have an abortion and she does not want to, and he thinks that this is definitely something he has to sign off on. After that, she sees. I also love this turn because the first time we see Tillman and BJ in the office, it's in his office, and she is looking for his attention for very valid reasons, and he's being a total dickbag. In this scene, it's a total reversal where she's actually way more consumed with the task at hand and does not give a fuck about his attention, about his input, about anything. So I celebrate that. And she sees Coakley, the man with the rash on his face and intense eyes. She IDs him.
So in the car on the way to Coakley's, Scully is like, what if it's cryptomnesia? You know, cryptomnesia. And Mulder's like, oh, that thing that, let me say the whole definition of it. And Scully's like, yeah, that thing. Cryptomnesia, the phenomenon of not recognizing the return of an old memory as a product of memory, but instead regarding it as a new or original thought or idea. This gives me the chills.
Also, that just sounds like what happens to me all the time.
Oh, God.
Do you know how many times I have an
chills.
idea that I've had already? Maybe twice, like that. That's not really what it is, but still. It also kind of sounds like it could be related in some way to how they describe our experiences of deja vu when they want to take deja vu and make it scientific instead of magical, That like you've done or you like thought about the progression of events right before they happened. And so when you actually do them, it feels like you've done them already, etc. Anyway.
So Scully's got a theory.
What if the recent murders triggered what was previously buried in her mind? Some connection she'd unconsciously made that no one else had been able to make?
I mean, a hunch?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, that's a pretty extreme hunch.
I seem to recall you having some pretty extreme hunches.
I never have.
Listen to these two.
I would give them significant eye contact, but I'm honestly still mad at Mulder. And so like I'm not giving it. I have to be in a place where I feel okay, and I still don't.
Totally. Also, we want everyone keeping their eyes on the road. So
that's true. Yeah. Try not to have significant eye contact while driving. Coakley classic. Smoking cigarettes with your oxygen tank. You love to see it.
Yep.
This is another, again, I don't know who wrote, since this is a script written by one person but then tweaked by two others. But I like to believe that this setup of Coakley saying, I don't remember much about that, when they ask him about raping and harming Miss Thibodeau, that Scully replies, I'm sure Mrs. Thibodeau would, and then cut to later when Mrs. Thibodeau talks about the color of the handle of the straight razor and the way that the light hit it. Like, that is some good shit. I think, like, explaining the positions of these two people and the dynamic and whatever by, like, actually just hearing their responses to being asked about it. So, A+ from me.
Yeah. This guy's like, it wasn't me. In the immortal words of Shaggy, it wasn't me. I can't go anywhere without my oxygen tank. I sit here and chill watching TV all day and all night. It wasn't me.
I'm wondering if any of LaToya's scary points came from this man calling Scully little sister twice. In this dialogue, because it really fucking I did not like it. The thing that helped me recover from that, Jenny, was that I learned that this actor played. Okay, so one of my favorite movies of all time is Girls Just Want to Have Fun, starring Sarah Jessica Parker, Shannon Doherty, Helen Hunt. It is a classic banger from the 80s. It's a dance movie. It takes place in Chicago. It's fun. And there's the like popular snobby girl, and she's having a debutante ball, and her dad is named JP Sands. He eventually winds up with like a bunch of jelly in his hair, and they crash the party, and like the fun people win and the rich people lose. Yay! Anyway, this guy's JP Sands, my JP Sands from Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And I know that the fucking other episode, Space, that guy was the dad, Sarah Jessica Parker's dad. So I'm going to start making a little tick sheet here and see how many Girls Just Want to Have Fun actors I can find in
them all.
X-Files, yeah.
Okay, so their number one suspect not looking so suspicious, but definitely looking creepy. Looking like a creep.
Yeah. I'm in my mind, like, clearly this man is astral projecting. You know what I mean? Like, this is where I'm at. This is what has to be happening.
He's taken the mushroom capsules.
Yeah.
He's becoming incorporeal, getting up to all kinds of bad shit.
Exactly. Okay, so we're up to what I think is maybe the best scene in the episode, which is at BJ's house where she's having a nightmare. This scene... And the scene that ended right before the credits. So the scene that happened right before the credits, we have BJ in the field. She's just dug up the first body. She's like sitting in this like misty field and the camera's panning up. It's super fucking creepy and super well executed. This scene has the same vibes. We have like the wind blowing through an open window. The sort of like curtains are blowing back and forth, and she wakes up in bed. She's having a nightmare, and we get some of those flashes again of like this old car and so on and so forth. You know, we eventually learn that this is Coakley when he's younger and that she's having these visions of his crimes. But she wakes up and there's blood everywhere. She like goes, when she turns on the light, she gets blood on the lampshade. She goes to the bathroom and she's like looking at herself in the mirror. This is, again, like when we talk about how incredible this performance is, I think this is really when it reaches its fever pitch. She's like rinsing off the blood and you see the like red water swirling down the drain. And she finds Sister cut into her chest. When she leaves the bathroom, she closes the door, and in the mirror is young Coakley. So just a really good horror scene. And I would love to let LaToya's commentary on the directing come in here for a second as well. LaToya says, Bowman's directing is pretty exemplary, especially up top. The opening tracking shot from the ground, following Tillman and the other detective from behind as they're talking about their case, leading into showing BJ for the first time. He then immediately cuts to the photo of Tillman and his wife in Tillman's office. So even before BJ says a word, we know exactly what the deal is between her and Tillman. Bowman also uses a lot of close-ups throughout the episode, which gave me real old school horror vibes. And I agree. I think this is just a cool looking episode.
Absolutely. You know what else this episode has?
What?
A woman asleep in her home who, when she is woken up by something disturbing, can reach her gun from where she is.
Yeah.
Scully, are you taking notes?
That's the next tip that they should discuss in the bathroom. The next time they find themselves in the bathroom together, maybe BJ can tell Scully to keep her gun a little bit closer to her.
While she is walking back to her bed, and I see a tiny little rug next to her bed that I like and would like in my home. It's a cool rug. Go back and check it out. She has more vision material, the prying up of basement floorboards, the dropping of a body into the hole. So down she goes to those very floorboards in someone else's house. This woman is just in a bathrobe and is like, I don't know, Tillman, Mulder, and Scully. I let her in. I didn't know what else to do.
I love
So she's
that.
down in my basement, prying up floorboards. Here's the body. Well, actually, it's bones in burlap. Now, this may be a question I've posed to the listenership before, and I realize this is going to be, the answer is going to be impacted by conditions, moisture, etc. But how long are we looking at for a body to go from a body to bones and burlap?
It's got to be a long time, but maybe he burned the body so he was only left with the bones. Because also...
No, because when in the vision we see the body being dragged in the burlap.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wouldn't think you would have just... also you would have like a
50
horrific
years.
smell.
You'd have a horrific smell at first.
Right. But you just
and it
need
has been
time.
50 years. It's like, okay, so you know how comedy is like tragedy plus time?
Yes, sure.
Bones are like body plus time.
Hit that hell math jingle, baby.
Hell math.
I have a question about the bag o' bones, which is how I refer to it in my notes.
Yeah.
If you live in your home, you love your home. Someone goes down to your basement, pulls up a floorboard. Let's just pretend you have floorboards in your basement.
Mm-hmm.
And they find a bag o' bones, bag o' human bones. Do you stay in your house or do you move out of your house?
That is tough. In this scenario, have I ever had any kind of like ghost experience in my house?
No, absolutely no paranormal experiences.
And do I have a paranormal experience following this reveal?
Nope, none. Just the bones.
I think I stay. I think I stay.
You stay. Yeah. I think I would stay too. When I moved into my house, there's a hole. It actually is still there, and I'll explain why. There was a hole through sort of like basically the base of the house, you know, those little cement place that like where the shingles end.
Above the grass, below the shingles.
Yeah.
They call it the midriff.
The midriff. In the midriff of my house, there was a hole. And when I was going through the inspection process, the inspector put her hand in the hole and pulled out what was a child's dress and a small blanket. And I said, put it back and never touch it again. And Jenny, I could walk out right there and just grab it again. Because I said, just leave it. Just leave it. And we won't talk about it, but we also will not remove it. When I eventually cement that over, the dress and the blanket will stay because I don't know what spirits I'm going to raise if I take that shit away. No, I know.
Yeah, I saw it this weekend, actually, while I was at your house.
You didn't take it out,
Vanthi showed
right?
it to me. No, Vanthi said that stays there.
It was her for. I was like, nice to meet you. Would you like to go on a date? If you come to my house, never touch the fucking dress or the blanket. So anyway, that makes me think that I would stay, but I would probably leave the fucking bones. Like, you can investigate, but then when you're done with your fucking DNA testing, those bones come back, bitch. Because
no, don't you think the bones would be happier if they were laid to rest?
If I had never had a paranormal experience in my home when the bones were there, I would need for them to stay there. That's how my mind works.
I don't think it would be up to you.
Well, then I might have to move.
Okay.
I mean, you've seen me. You've seen my work. I could probably convince nearly anyone to give me the bones back.
That's true. You're very persuasive.
Okay. BJ's in the hospital because she has giant wounds on her chest that spell out sister. And Scully brings her pajamas, question mark? Is that what she brings her in the back?
Is that what happens?
Women supporting women. You love to see it.
They're just gals who are pals.
She IDs Coakley. They kind of like gloss over the fact that she's like, he looked just like he looked in his picture. Mulder's like, but... And Scully's like, cool, so we can go get him? Great. She's like, that fucking asshole who called me little sister twice, just say no more.
Yeah, we're going to get his ass,
Book him,
said
Dano.
Scully.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Tillman's interrogating Coakley, and Coakley is basically like, you're a fucking idiot, and promptly lawyers up.
Yeah, gorgeous shot again. There's like some like dust motes in the light of the mini blind in this questioning room. Very beautiful stuff. And we find out at the not to be confused with the Motel Black, which is where John Locke wants to meet up with the woman he's having an affair with. So if you're a Lost fan, is this one of the places that John Locke goes when he spins the wheel? You know what I mean? Is this just one of his other side stories? Just a question. Could be. But the other motel, which I refer to as the Motel Hotel Holiday Inn, in case you don't know, this is reserved only for the motels where Scully and Mulder are staying when they investigate a case. This is where we first hear the discussion that the blood types are, not the blood types are matching, but like some little bits of blood are matchy-matchy, and that means that they could be relatives. And then they finally decide how it's taken them this long to talk to Thibodeau is beyond all of us. The only living survivor of this man. So they finally go to Tibbs' house.
Yeah, and she's like, here's how it was at the trial. The reasons that they gave that you might grow up to do some murder. You were beaten by your dad. Heard it before. Fairly, in the sort of popular culture consciousness of criminal court ongoings. Jung. Brutally punished for everything wrong that happened when you were a child. Jung, totally. But also, leading cause of becoming a murderer. You're the only son in a family with 5 daughters. No! Slashy. What?
Yeah, so the deal is that, at least from a legal standpoint, the case they made was that this man murdered women and carved the word sister into their... I'm sorry, murdered and raped women. LaToya makes a point as well that they really just gloss over this. We're going to hear more from Thibodeau in a second, but like... That the reason for this is that he had 5 sisters, and the abuse that he suffered at the hands of his father was only him. And you hear him and then BJ like as some version of him saying like, who else is going to take the blame? You have to take the blame. And this is like how the whole thing is couched. But it's kind of a stretch, but that's where we're at. So, of course, we learn, because Mulder's a detective. So he's like, so you went to the hospital for your injuries
But then you went back 9 months later. I'm no mathematician and I'm no babyologist, but ... And she's like, you've got me. And she produces from inside the back of a frame of a picture that's hanging in her hall the address of the adoption agency where she put the baby up for adoption.
This is like a bunch. The writers are like, so where do really old people keep things? In the back of their picture frames, the sealed kind. We have to peel the paper back. I do love it. I do love Thibodeau, the hero of the episode, by a landslide.
Yeah.
She's sort of like the whole episode, and this is, I think, to LaToya's point of kind of wishing that this had been given a feature length, because there are these plot points that, or not plot points, but like thematic points that just aren't dug into enough, because really this episode is asking about nurture versus nature. It's asking, if you have a grandfather who was a serial killer, is there some genetic reason why you might do this? Is there a genetic reason why people do bad things? Or are you just, as Thibodeau says, he was just evil, right? Like, you can say that he was the only boy with 5 girls and that he suffered abuse and blah, blah, blah. But I saw him and he was just evil. This ongoing, Buffy asked this question in a fantasy space. The X-Files is asking this question in a scientific / paranormal space. And I wish that there had been more room for that. But there is only 40 minutes. So we just kind of get it mentioned a few times and then forward we go with no real answers as to the nurture v nature debate of it all.
Answers, please. Listen. At the Hotel Motel Holiday Inn, sunflower seeds everywhere. They learn that it was Ledbetter. They get confirmation that it was Ledbetter under the floorboards. Scully's ready to nail Coakley. Mulder's unconvinced. He says, maybe she did see a younger man. Young Coakley. Coakley's grandson. Scully says, are you saying Coakley's grandson attacked BJ? And Mulder says, it would make sense. Would it, Mulder? Would it make sense? He goes on to say, genetic traits often skip a generation, and that would explain the test results of the blood under Verna Johnson's fingernails. PGM subtypes are similar among relatives. And then Mulder's like, listen, Scully.
Oh my God. He takes out a microphone the size of a sunflower seed, and just sets it up for this scene.
When I was a kid, I would have nightmares. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking I was the only person left in the world. And I would hear this.
What?
My dad would be in a study eating these.
Yeah, Danny Valadeo. It's Agent Scully. What does that have to do with Coakley?
Well, on a basic cellular level, we're the sum total of all our ancestors' biological matter. But what if more than biological traits get passed down from generation to generation? What if I like sunflower seeds because I'm genetically predisposed to liking them?
But children aren't born liking sunflower seeds. Environments shape them. Behavior patterns are taught.
Now, there are countless stories of twins who were separated at birth, who end up in the same occupation, marrying the same kind of people, each naming their child Waldo.
Waldo?
Jung wrote about it when he talked about the collective unconscious. It's genetic memory, Scully.
A+ sunflower seed Foley. You know what I mean? Just, I don't know who you are, but great work.
Yeah.
And more.
It's like, you know how the woman who does all of the animal sound design for Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon takes like the cries, calls, screams of various animals and layers them on top of each other to create these dragon sounds that are like, that sound very like incredible and unique to us by virtue of the sort of like combining all of those aspects into one sound. This is the level of sound design that's going on here.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to take it all the way home and say this is layers and layers of one man crunching a sunflower seed.
Yeah, this is like 500,000. Maybe this is better. Remember when 1,000 musicians gathered in Cesena, Italy to play Learn to Fly by Foo Fighters all together in unison to try to get Foo Fighters to come play in their city?
No, I
Imagine
don't.
1,000 people playing Learn to Fly by Foo Fighters together.
Wow.
And then imagine all 1,000 of those people crunching on a sunflower seed into a mic.
Incredible.
Just the 1,000 track Pro Tools session.
Okay, so back on my bullshit of we're really not giving a lot of credence to the genetic theory, in my opinion. In this very scene, they learn that BJ is Coakley's granddaughter. Do you think BJ is capable of murder, Scully says? Mulder, no, but Coakley is, and that is who BJ has become. What?
He's always been intrigued by women named BJ, and this is why.
This is why.
You thought it was going to be one thing, but it's actually this.
It's actually because they usually have a mutant gene that is making dormant genes make them serial killers.
Yeah. We've all been there.
LOL to the fact that she also has had sister carved into her chest, and none of us understand that, including Mulder, who, when asked about this, says, I can't explain everything. Maybe she carved it on herself. Maybe it's some weird stigmata. I write in my notes, this is from now on. When Kristin asks the question or Jenny asks the question and there is no answer, in the world of buffering the Vampire Slayer, it was metaphysics. In the world of the X-Files, I posit, maybe it's some weird stigmata.
Maybe it's some weird stigmata.
Some weird stigmata. I clocked Chekhov's ammonia, by the way, when we went back to Chekhov's house. When we went back to Thibodeau's house, I was immediately like, Chekhov's ammonia. And I was so stoked when she threw it in the face of BJ later.
I have something to report.
Oh, yes, Jenny.
Maybe to save ourselves time, instead of saying, maybe it's some weird stigmata, we could say, MISWS?
No, absolutely not. I'm not allowing that. No.
What about Miss Wiss?
Nope, absolutely not.
Miss Wiss.
Nope. Mm-mm. Okay, so back to Chekhov's ammonia. Fucking BJ comes in possessed by the genes of her grandfather and grabs an iron. Thibodeau, speaking of women who have a gun very close by, Thibodeau not only throws her ammonia in BJ's face, but in the time that affords her, gets to the drawer where she keeps her fucking gun. This is a survivor. This is a survivor who is like ready to fuck somebody up if they ever come near her again, especially if it is with a straight razor, which BJ has.
Mm-hmm.
BJ completely re-traumatizing her grandmother, that sort of like backs her back up the stairs at the same place that she was with Coakley. The first time that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of like break to commercial as we see the straight razor go up and we hear Thibodeau scream and then it like goes black. And then the next scene is like the front of the house and you kind of don't know. Is Tibbs the final girl? Yes, she fucking is. She lives because none of the Coakleys, Coakley Sr., Coakley Jr., Coakley Jr., none of them can kill her.
Yeah, she's like, you're my grandchild. And then they both mirror their sister scars.
That's something I miss doing with my grandmother, you know.
May she rest in peace.
Oh, may she rest in peace. There's this real move at the end to like really put the blame on Coakley and not on BJ. It's just like, it's kind of undone in the way that the whole episode ends. But in the scene in the stairs, like the lines are saying, you know, Tibbs is saying he's done this to both of us. You don't know what you're doing. He's the one to blame. It's just really, I think like, you know, sometimes you have just a bad episode of television. And if you want to hear us talk about one of those.
What do you mean?
You can just go to last week's episode. But I think like the more frustrating thing for me is when an episode, because there's so many really cool things in this episode. The acting is really great. The directing is really great. A lot of the writing is really good. But there are these gaps that just are never really closed. And I wish that they were, because it's so close. And so I'm always way more frustrated when it like gets so close and then just kind of doesn't pull it together. But
yeah.
Either way. So Mulder screeches up and they find Thibodeau alive up at the top of the stairs. Where did BJ go? Dun, dun, dun. She went to kill the fuck out of Coakley. Honestly, let's go.
Hooray! You ever get that feeling where you have to kill your grandfather because he passed down to you a genetic situation that skips a generation that made you a serial killer, but you're actually a serial killer, like sort of like possessed by his genes, and you don't know what you're doing. You're not in control of yourself.
I'm sure
this episode has absolutely no holes in it. Go on.
I'm sure that a lot of spoilers for the new Screams in the Scream franchise, but I'm sure a lot of people have some feelings on Scream 5 and 6. But I do think that there's some really interesting stuff done with this, with a very similar arc, right? Billy Loomis is the father of one of the girls in the new Screams, and she's wrestling with what that means for her, that her father was somebody who was a murderer and committed all of these really horrible crimes. This like wants to do that, but it's just burdened, I think, with a little bit too much. Too many questions and too many questions unanswered. If only we could dream more, because Mulder says that dreams are the answers to the questions that we haven't yet thought to ask.
So true.
Before we go to Coakley's for one final time, I just want to say that we have this very brief moment at the police headquarters where I say that John Locke, Brian, is locking out. He's so mad, and like he is never more John Locke than in this moment when he's like, Detective Morrow could not hurt anyone. I just like was immediately on the island with polar bears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's Saeed? Will he snap a man's neck in his thighs? I would love to see it. Thank you very much.
But Tibbs is there and she's like, listen, John Locke, it happened.
Yeah.
So Mulder, Scully, and Tillman all zip over to Coakley's, where BJ is already there with her strap razor. And she's all like, how does it feel to be on the other side of the razor, brother? So wait, is she
the sister?
Possessed by the genes of one of the sisters?
That's what I'm saying. I would love to see this script before it was, and I mean, nothing but respect for Morgan and Wong. Like, they've delivered to us some beautiful episodes, but it definitely feels like there are places where maybe things were shifted and
nobody went back to like make sure everything lined up.
Yeah, I would love to know if we're missing some pieces that used to be there that could help us here. But yeah, how does it feel to be on the other side of the razor, brother? Because I thought, oh, wouldn't it have been so cool? Like, he had 5 sisters, and like, what if his sisters were like, you know, coming back to take revenge on this brother, or like on behalf of the women that he had killed, you know, whatever. Like, there's things in there. And again, this is probably why LaToya said a feature film length would have been good for this story. This is not the first. Am I wrong in saying that this is not the first time that somebody has gotten knocked out with a fire extinguisher in this television show? Because I remember them
familiar. Was that a fire extinguisher or an oxygen tank?
Oh, very similar shaped items.
BJ bonks Mulder with, I think, the oxygen tank. She's fixing to slit his throat when Scully and Tillman show up with guns, and BJ's like, I'm not BJ. And Mulder's like, yes, you are. You have to be. I'm very intrigued by women named BJ.
Yeah. And then Coakley, this is the same. I'm in the same place I was at the end of the last episode. Coakley dies. Apparently, this show believes that when someone dies, all of the bad things stop happening. Because Coakley dies, and we've heard from BJ herself, you know the rules. This doesn't stop till you're dead. Where were the rules? What are the rules? But
I'd love to see the rules.
She's correct, because the minute Coakley dies, her genes snap right back into place. Her genes are like, bing, 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 bing. Get that mutant gene is gone. He died. So that's how genetics works, right? Anyway.
That is definitely how it works.
We can't leave this scene of this crime because it's also the scene of something very tender, which is that old bonk on the head Mulder gets scooped up by Scully. She cradles his head as though if the camera had stayed a little bit longer, she would have brought his head to her bosom. I've never seen anyone do this without then continuing to their bosom. You know what I mean? It's just...
You said like bosom a couple times.
Anytime I bring up boobs in the Discord and you're not there, someone is like, can you tag Jenny? She'll want to be here for this.
Hell yeah. My reputation precedes me.
All right. So Scully's diary has been a real bummer lately, Jenny.
I know. It's all bad news. Oh my God. She's like, ugh. You know, like, oh, we don't have any new information. BJ is in the Shamrock Women's Prison Psychiatric Ward, which is high security, and she's on suicide watch. After an unsuccessful attempt to abort her son, she's pregnant with a boy. BJ, didn't you yourself say that it ends when he dies?
I know, but also, like, this is a really fucked up ending because regardless of whether BJ was possessed by some kind of entity and doing things that she didn't know she was doing, or if some mutant gene was like activated in her, that either way, like, this woman has been through massive trauma and is pregnant. And so to like end the episode where she is locked in a psychiatric ward and she's on suicide watch because she's tried to, you know, get rid of her child. It's just like, it's very upsetting on so many levels that this woman is not getting any kind of help or care and is just shut away in a room.
Yeah.
They also say that they're continuing genetic testing on her and that the results are inconclusive whether or not this mutator gene activated previously dormant genes, ? In an episode that gave me a couple of beats of like, cool, women supporting women, and like, we just really came crashing down to the fucking floor with how this one ends. Especially, I don't know why I'm extra mad that then it's like, and Tillman has offered to adopt the baby. I'm like, this fucker gets this like little fucking bow at the end. This guy was a shitbag for the whole thing. And then the episode is like, and he was a nice guy. I mean, I don't know that they're trying to say that, but it just feels unnecessary. Yeah. And I really wished for better for BJ and her child and Thibodeau. Like, show me an ending where Thibodeau has like reunited with her granddaughter and they're both living with the great grandchild of Thibodeau. Give me that. And they're all going to go back to the World's Fair. Like, I don't want this shit. I reject it.
Kristin.
Speaking of perispheres and pylons, what's the thing called? Perispheres and tylons?
Speaking of those, let us turn our attention.
Speaking of triangles and circles, let us go now.
Yeah. To the Sexual Tension Awards.
Sexual Tension Award.
Welcome back to another installment of the Sexual Tension Awards. Today's noms are pretty exciting, but before we get to them, Kristin, do you have the results from last episodes? No, we don't.
Yeah, no, Jenny, we do, because the results are the one thing that we decided, which was Scully and a fucking mushroom burger. So yeah, I actually do have those results on hand.
You'll all be thrilled to hear that the people's fave, the people's choice, was victorious. Last episode's winner was Dana Scully and a mushroom burger. Hooray!
Congrats. The ribs that got the trophy the week prior, they live right next door to the mushroom burger, so really easy.
Amazing. In slot number 1, we have a thrilling combo. It's Mulder and sunflower seeds. Nurture edition.
I was so hoping you were going to say edition, and I feel like I manifested it. Thank you.
In slot number 2, for people of a different stripe, we've got Mulder and sunflower seeds. Nature edition. If you want to boil it down and make it really simple, basically your options are nature and nurture, but both come with Mulder and sunflower seeds. So you're welcome.
Please don't boil your sunflower seeds. That just sounds gross.
If you want to vote in our poll, please head on over to bufferingcast.com/STA. We are ready to receive your votes, compassionately and with an open heart.
Yeah, put your triangles in our circle.
Whoa!
Sexual attention award.
Okay. Now that we're done looking there, let's turn our eyes 45 degrees to the northeast.
Oh, wow. We're going to have a map of buffering a rewatch adventure soon.
Yeah. I'm like a Roomba, mapping it out nice and slowly but surely. What's that? What's yonder amethyst glow? Peer closer and come face to face with the inescapable mysteries held within Kristin's crystal ball.
Kristin's crystal ball, she can see it all. What's coming down the pike, I'm sure she'll get it right.
Welcome back. As we told you last episode, this crystal ball is now a place for 2 things. 1, if we have a burning question, we will ask the crystal ball. And 2, if we don't, or if we have more space, we will read a listener email. Jenny, I asked my crystal ball immediately upon finishing this episode, will Mulder ever write Scully a poem? And it said, yes, he will. And I am so excited about it. I cannot wait to find out what poem Mulder writes for Scully.
And no details the crystal ball was withholding?
No, but it did say that if I was patient, I might get a sample of that poem in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for a future crystal ball for the words that come out of its amethyst orb.
My God. I've got a burning question for your crystal ball.
Yes.
I think we've pretty much established by this point that Mulder is always cronching on sunflower seeds. He takes them with him everywhere, on assignment, to the office, etc. When, if ever, will we see him share his sunflower seeds with Special Agent Dana Scully?
I'm going to say that this happens 6 episodes before they either make out or sleep together. This is like the gateway. Like he shares his sunflower seeds, and that is what really seals the deal for these 2. So I don't have a timeline, because
everything's relative in the X-Files verse.
I'm going to anchor it. I'm going to anchor those 2 things together on the timeline.
Great. Love it.
And Jenny, I had to save room for the email that I promised you, subject of which was Jenny was right.
Yes! Already my favorite email ever.
Jeremy says, in Firewalker, that's the one with the volcanoes, in case you don't remember, Jenny said, I know that this is not true, but volcanoes feel like they were a lot more of a thing in the 90s than they are now. Actually, Jenny, that is more true than you might expect. Ever heard of Mount St. Helens? Jeremy just picked up a file.
File thuds on my desk.
Located on occupied Cowlitz land in Washington state, Mount St. Helens is a stratovolcano that famously and spectacularly erupted in 1980 after over 100 years of dormancy. The USDA Forest Service describes the eruption, which killed 57 people and destroyed 230 square miles of surrounding forests, as the deadliest and most economically destructive volcanic event in U.S. history. Mount St. Helens experienced continuous but much less destructive volcanic activity until 2008. It makes sense that volcanoes were on the collective mind in the aftermath, and it is true that there is less volcanic activity in the continental U.S. now. And then Jeremy also included a map from the U.S. Geological Survey that tracks active volcanoes. So we'll put that in our show notes so you can link to it if you'd like. And I really feel like we just really fucked everyone by me reading that the volcanic activity has been much lower in the continental U.S. Sorry, U.S. Good luck.
Wow.
Well, Jennifer, we've crystal balled. Oh, you know what we haven't done? We haven't smuggest bitched.
You know who's the smuggest bitch of the episode?
Who?
Coakley.
Yeah. Coakley
is so smug.
For sure. That like old Coakley is the smuggest bitch of all time. Smoking his cigarettes, puffing on his oxygen tank, being a real asshole. And
Correct.
Last week I tried to rein it in and say smug bitches can never actually be evil, but I guess I'm wrong because this guy's a fucking dick and I'm going to give him smug bitch.
Yeah. Well, Kristin.
Yeah, Jenny?
I'm no smug bitch. I'm Jenny Owen Youngs.
Beg to
and when I'm
disagree.
not watching... What?
I said beg to differ. Beg to disagree.
And when I'm not watching the X-Files or Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Fallout, I'm usually making music. My latest record's called Avalanche. You can find it on all your digital streaming services. You can give me a shout on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Jenny Owen Youngs. Come say hi.
Yeah, go say hi to Jenny, or you can come say hi to me, or both of us. But you can find me and all that I do at KristinNoeline.com. That's KristinNoeline. It is Pride Month, and I tend to do a lot of work with LGBTQ plus communities. In addition to our book that's coming out in March, Slayers Every One of Us, I also have another book that is coming out this September called A Quick and Easy Guide to Coming Out. It's a little graphic novel, and it is pretty great, if I do say so myself. So you can learn all about that. KristinNoeline.com. Follow me on socials at KristinNoeline.
Hell yeah. Buffering or rewatch adventures on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at BufferingCast. You can email us at hello@bufferingcast.com or write to the Crystal Ball at crystalball@bufferingcast.com.
Support our work on Patreon, patreon.com/bufferingcast. You can also listen to our coverage of the first 8 episodes of Fallout, which begin in just a week?
Hell.
And a half.
Yes.
Real soon. We're going to be doing Fallout, so come on over.
This episode was produced by Kristin Russo, Jenny Owen Youngs, and LaToya Ferguson, with support from our consultant Mackenzie McDade. It was edited by John Mark Nelson. Until next time, the status of this X-File is sensing these things in a womanly fashion.
Hi, I'm Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life. I talked to acclaimed director and executive producer Roland Emmerich.
When I saw the first race, I was like giddy.
Actor Ewan Ryan.
For an actor, that's a dream, although you do get a lot of sand in your sandals.
And so many more.
You helped summon those ghosts back onto that stage.
Every day when I went to set, I was giggling about what I saw.
I think it's going to be a breathtaking thing.
People will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
A bloodbath tonight in the rural town of Chinook.
Everyone here is hiding a secret.
4 more victims found scattered.
Some worse than others.
I came as fast as I could. I'm Deputy Ruth Vogel.
And soon, my quiet life will never be the same.
Realm presents a 30 Ninjas production, Chinook, starring Kelly Marie Tran and Sanaa Lathan. Listen to Chinook wherever you get your podcasts.